Tonight, a Scottish Labour MSP is arrested and charged over possession of indecent images of children. Colin Smith was arrested at a property in Dumfries earlier this month. He's now been suspended by his party. Also coming up, how Scots are coping with the spiralling cost of living. As inflation hits an 18-month high, we hear from people at the sharp end of rising prices.
It's harder to pay for your fuel to get to work, never mind to fill your fridge on a weekly basis. It's not easy for anyone, let alone anyone with kids.
The number of whales and dolphins stranding on our shores has more than tripled over the past 30 years, but experts aren't sure why.
Coming up in tonight's sport, I'll be live at Celtic Park as Brendan Rodgers' side take on Kairat Almaty in the playoff for the Champions League.
And let there be rock, the 87-year-old Gran determined to see one of her favourite bands just months after suffering a stroke. Hello, I'm Laura Goodwin and this is Reporting Scotland. The Scottish Labour MSP Colin Smith has been arrested and charged over possession of indecent images of children. The 52-year-old has represented South Scotland since 2016 and was arrested at a property in Dumfries earlier this month. He'll appear at Dumfries Sheriff Court at a later date. Well, let's go to our political correspondent Andrew Kerr, who is outside the Scottish Labour headquarters in Glasgow for us. Andrew, what more can you tell us?
Yes, Laura, just some more details. Police Scotland released a statement this afternoon saying that on the 5th of August, officers executed a warrant at a property in Dumfries. The Scottish Labour MSP Colin Smith was arrested and charged in connection with the possession of indecent images and is due to appear at Dumfries Sheriff Court at a later date. And we understand those images are of children. Now, Scottish Labour confirmed the MSP was suspended when they were first made aware of this, which we understand was at the weekend. Now, Mr Smith had actually appeared in a video with the Scottish Labour leader Anna Sarwar that was posted on social media on the 7th of August, but that has now been deleted. Now, Mr Smith has released a statement to us saying these events have come as a shock and he's cooperating fully with any inquiries.
And Mr Smith has been a Labour MSP for some time.
Yes, that's right. He was first elected to Holyrood back in 2016 at the election then, representing South Scotland in the Scottish Parliament. He's held several front bench roles and has actually served as Scottish Labour's General Secretary. And he's a very well-known figure in the south of Scotland locally there too. Now, with his suspension from Labour, he is now listed as an independent in the list of MSPs on the Scottish Parliament website. Laura.
Andrew, thank you. Prices are rising and faster than they did last year. On average, goods and services cost 3.8% more than they did in July 2024. Now, let's put that into some context because here in 2022, we saw a sharp spike. That was when Liz Truss was Prime Minister. And since then, prices have been rising more slowly, but as you can see, inflation is starting to creep up again. It means that compared to 5 years ago, when the cost of living crisis began, prices have risen by almost 25%. You might have noticed that in your own spending, in airfares, petrol and food. Now let's look at food. It has risen steeply over the last 5 years, around 37%. In the last year, meat, coffee, chocolate and fruit juice now cost significantly more. So what impact is this having? Our business correspondent David Henderson has been finding out.
Playing in the sand at a tots group in Glasgow, this centre in Govan helps families with their childcare. It's a big expense for most working families. But the adults in the room have noticed prices of all sorts are rocketing.
It's harder to pay for your fuel to get to work, never mind to fill your fridge on a weekly basis. It's not easy for anyone, let alone anyone with kids.
When prices do rise, in which they do constantly, it's hard. It's hard. You have to pick and choose what you can have The small luxuries are not there so much anymore.
Here, there's also help with affordable food, but demand far outstrips supply. And having a job, it seems, doesn't mean you can make ends meet.
More and more, it's working families where we've got two parents who are working, both doing their best to try and bring income into the household and still not managing to meet their basic weekly costs.
The cost of living is rising and faster than before, putting a squeeze on living standards for many.
It's particularly hard to cut down on essential spending because we all need to eat, we all need to, use energy and live in a home that's warm enough. So, and if you're already cutting down on spending on these things, you can't really cut down any further.
It's the cost of everyday items which is having the biggest impact. Food prices are on the rise, so a weekly shop is proving that bit more expensive.
When you get your paycheck, you have to pay for council tax, obviously rent. That's like all of your money, but if you have like 200, 300 quid at the end of the month for everything else, that's lucky, I would say.
We're also finding that holidays are increasing. Holidays, have you been on holiday this summer?
No, we went on a grand adventure through to Stirling. That was our summer holiday this year. So no, I think abroad holidays or any sort of, even a caravan holiday, it's just out of the question.
It's the basics which are costing more, and there's little sign that's going to change very soon. So household budgets are under pressure once again.
And David is with us. David, why is inflation rising again?
Well, it's been a long, hot summer, and that's been part of the problem because drought conditions in some parts of the country have meant a bad harvest, and that drives up the cost of food. Global events don't help either. There's been conflict in the Middle East and Ukraine as well. Now, prices are not rising as fast as they were at the height of the cost of living crisis 3 years ago. But experts at the Bank of England say the cost of food is set to continue to rise through this year and will then fall away by next year. But of course, that is an economic forecast, and like a weather forecast, they can get it wrong.
And what is the UK government saying it will do about this?
Well, the UK Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, defends her government's handling of the economy, saying that inflation is lower than when Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak were in charge. But she said that there's more to do to ease the cost of living. She hasn't given details, but it's clear they're looking at a range of measures on tax and spending in her autumn budget. The SNP and Tories are pressing the Chancellor to cut national insurance, which was a key tax measure which she introduced last year and which they say is partly to blame for all this. The prospect of a U-turn on that key policy seems remote, but never say never when it comes to politics. Laura.
OK, David, thank you. Some of the day's other stories now. Relatives of a young man who died in custody are suing the NHS and Police Scotland, BBC Scotland News has learned. Warren Fenty died from a drugs overdose at Kitty Brewster Police Station in Aberdeen in 2014 after discharging himself from hospital. A fatal accident inquiry found last year that his death might have been avoided. Both organisations declined to comment. The head of the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry has condemned the disgraceful abdication of responsibility that resulted in widespread abuse against children at the former Keele School in Dumbarton. Lady Smith said abuse there became normal practice by the late 1950s. Former teacher William Bain was jailed for 9 years in June for grooming and sexually abusing several children between 1987 and 2000. The bill for housing those needing homes in Glasgow could rise to £110 million more than Glasgow City Council originally estimated. The council say their costs are being pushed up by the number of refugees it has to house and is now calling on the Home Office to help. Well, let's speak to our news correspondent Jamie McIver. Jamie, can you explain?
Yes, first of all, let's clarify who we're talking about. An asylum seeker is someone who's applying to the UK government for leave to remain in the country. A refugee, though, is someone who's had that application approved, so that means they can travel, work and claim benefits anywhere in the country. Now, what's happening in Glasgow is that refugees who now have a right to stay in the UK are often travelling from England or Northern Ireland and then presenting as homeless in Glasgow.
So why are they doing that?
Well, it's basically because the rules around who can get help when homeless are different in Scotland. Now, here councils must help everyone who presents as homeless, whereas in England you'll only get priority help if you're vulnerable or if you have children. Now, let's look at some figures. Glasgow City Council says that in the year 2023 to 2024, it received almost 700 requests from refugees who'd come from outside Scotland. But the following year, that number had shot up to more than 1,000 requests. Indeed, since 2022, Glasgow's housed more than 2,000 refugee households at the cost of some £40 million.
So what is the council saying about this?
Well, the council leader, Susan Aitken, wants the Home Office to recognise the pressure Glasgow is under. For instance, she wants them to look at how more refugees might be helped to live in other areas. But crucially, she also wants financial help for the council.
They need to step in and support local authorities with the funding here, because we're looking at now a very significant budget gap for our budget next year, which we are legally required to balance. We will have to fill that gap, and the vast majority of it, the biggest share of it by far, is the cost of homelessness.
And what about the Home Office?
Well, the Home Office says it's working right across the UK to give councils as much notice as possible of newly recognised refugees, but there's no word on any extra money for Glasgow. The Scottish Government says it supports Glasgow's call and says the UK Government must provide what it describes as adequate funding to support newly recognised refugees and also communities. It's also defending the homelessness law here. Now, the Scottish Conservatives say what they call savage SNP cuts have caused a housing emergency in Glasgow at a time when the roads are ridden with potholes. Now, tomorrow Glasgow City Council is going to be discussing the cost of homelessness, but what we won't see tomorrow is any change to the council's policy of helping homeless refugees. Indeed, it stresses they're welcome.
OK, Jamie, thank you very much for taking us through that. Tonight's main news again. The Labour MSP Colin Smith is suspended by the party after being charged with possession of indecent images.
Still to come in tonight's sport, we'll have the latest from Celtic Park ahead of Brendan Rodgers' side Champions League playoff against Kairat Almaty. And we'll have reaction to Rangers' defeat to Club Bruges.
The number of whales and dolphins stranding on our shores has more than tripled over the past 30 years. Last year, 77 pilot whales died in a mass stranding in Orkney. It was one of the biggest for decades. Researchers say while the exact cause of these type of events are difficult to pinpoint, they agree human activities are likely to be having an impact. Cameron Angus Mackay has this report.
Scenes like these have become all too common. It's the first time scientists have been able to analyse the rise in marine mammal strandings over a 30-year period. Their conclusion? What they call an exponential increase.
Been about 125% increase in strandings across all species, and for some species that's even more so. So for baleen whales, which includes humpback whales and minke whales, that's closer to 250% increase, and common dolphins, that's more like 800%. So we're seeing huge numbers.
Strandings happen when marine animals get stuck in shallow water or on the shoreline. The number of whales, dolphins and porpoises getting into difficulty has risen from about 100 a year to more than 300 over the 30-year period. Strandings are widespread across the country, but with different species clustering in specific areas. For example, the Inner Murray Firth tends to see harbour porpoise strandings during the summer. The data reveals some of the worst affected areas, with the Hebrides and Forth and Tay region high on the list. For rescuers, it can be an emotional experience.
It can be very difficult, so the first thing is just seeing an animal of that size and that power, really, to be so helpless, and we do everything we can to try and help. It can be dangerous work. If the animal's ashore, it'll be very distressed, it might move unexpectedly. These animals can weigh, 40 tonnes at times.
So, what explains the rise in strandings?
That's what we now need to go on to. What we've now got is a really robust baseline for understanding where these mortalities are, when they are, and which species they're involved with. And that will allow us to much better target the surveillance going forward, and also investigate in more detail as to whether or not these mortalities are to do with the human activity, because that's the big question, of course, is whether or not there are activities that we are doing in the marine environment that are in some way causing these strandings.
Scientists hope all of this will help shape future conservation efforts to protect marine mammals in Scotland's waters. Cameron Angus-Mackay, reporting Scotland.
Now, usually you'd expect archaeologists to be digging up ancient ruins and dinosaurs from the distant past, but experts from Glasgow University are now sifting for the remnants of a more recent culture, 1970s skateboarders. They're digging up the remains of Scotland's first skate park in Kelvin Grove in Glasgow. Jamie Blair skated there back in the day and told our colleagues on the news at 7 about its heyday.
From a Scottish perspective, I think skateboarding really hit mid-70s, and it was a big thing. It was the new thing. It was like there's Beatlemania and then there was skateboard mania. It was just crazy. There was just so many people on skateboards, and then it quickly sort of settled down, and the fences came down. The park was left sort of to its own devices, and skateboarding was still kind of in its infancy. So they sort of made it unskateable by filling it in.
And you can find out more about that unusual excavation on the news at 7 on BBC Scotland at 7. Right, time now to get on tonight's sport with Sheila, who's at Celtic Park. Sheila, it's a big night. Celtic get their European campaign up and running.
Yes, that's right, Laura. European nights are back here at Celtic Park as they take on Kairat Almaty for a place in the Champions League. Brendan Rodgers' side have qualified automatically for the league phase in the last 3 seasons, and they made it to the knockout round last year. Now they're huge favourites to secure a win tonight to take on that 3,500-mile journey for next week's second leg. And if Celtic get through this tie, there are huge benefits. Not just the prestige of taking on the continent's best sides, but a minimum cash windfall of around £20 million.
Obviously, we haven't experienced this over the last couple of seasons, but this is what this period's about. You want to arrive into these games. This is a massive game. There's always that feeling when I was here first, the big games seemed to be right at the very beginning, and this is exactly what this is, because this tees you up for the rest of your season.
When the club make Champions League, everyone gets a bounce off it, the supporters, the players, the manager, everybody. Big financial implications as well. So it does, it really sets you up and has a real sort of feel-good factor. So, there's a lot on the games, but I believe the team are ready, the squad are ready, and now it's up to us to go and prove that.
Well, much has been made about Celtic's transfer business over the summer and whether it's enough to compete in the Champions League should they get there. Well, earlier I spoke to some supporters outside about this and, of course, about tonight's game.
These early teams can be potential banana skins, so we don't know too much about them, but we expect to be stronger than them and should get the job done tonight.
I think if we get a good result tonight, you'll see players come through the door. I think when they maximise with the budget that comes in with that, I think Brendan will get the players that he wants.
The league phase last season was better performances than we had last couple of seasons ago, so we're going to do brilliant.
Well, we've got a bit of team news just in, and I can tell you that Benjamin Negron does start, Adam Ida is up front, and James Forrest is also in for Celtic. The full team news on the BBC Sports Scotland website. Well, that game is, of course, tonight. Last night, Rangers got their Champions League playoff against Club Bruges underway, and despite losing 3-1 at Ibrox, head coach Russell Martin insists the tie is not over, prompting some Rangers fans to walk out. Danilo pulled a goal back to give them a bit of hope, but they face...
Terrible. See if he didn't have a Rangers jersey on, he wouldn't watch him.
That's how bad they really are.
Martin's time is going to soon run out. You're only one sort of bad result away from a crisis up here, and I think he'll be gone by the 1st September. They'll get knocked out next week and lose the first whole firm.
There's no sign of any improvement, you know. I think that's the most frustrating thing.
Do you think there's any hope for the second leg, sir?
No, very little. Very little.
The tie is still game on. We've been away to two teams that have been chasing us, and now we get to be the one that's chasing and hunting and really can attack the game. So I'm excited about that opportunity, and the players have done that in the second half, and the fans as well, with the energy completely changed.
Well, the European action extends beyond Glasgow this week because both Aberdeen and Hibernian are at home in Europa League and Conference League playoffs, respectively. The Dons take on FCSB, formerly known as Steaua Bucharest, in a Europa League playoff. That's their reward for winning the Scottish Cup. Manager Jimmy Tillene is hoping for a big atmosphere at Pittodrie for a match you can watch live on BBC Scotland.
The atmosphere, the supporters and the fans have created all my time I've been here. I never seen something different, and I know how much it can lift the players, and also the players has to send their energy to the supporters. So I think this connection is so important, and I think we will see it tomorrow also, and that can make a difference.
From Aberdeen to Edinburgh, where Hibernian will take centre stage against Legia Warsaw. Easter Road came alive last week when Chris Cadden's extra-time winner saw Hibs progress to the last qualifying round for the Conference League. Head coach David Gray hopes the feel-good factor around Leith can propel them to their first ever group stage campaign.
Can we qualify for group stage football, which has never been done before at the club? So can you then recreate history again? And the challenge we've had, the tests we've had, the games we've came through has been fantastic. And this is the last one. It doesn't get any easier. If anything, it gets tougher just because you get a little bit closer and what that means and dealing with that. And the expectation and the noise round about it. But it's certainly a very exciting time to be a Hibs player and fan and everybody connected with the club at the minute. And we need to use that to an advantage.
That's all from here at Celtic Park on a big night of European football. Celtic take on Kairat Almaty. You can follow all the action on the BBC Sport Scotland website and on BBC Radio Scotland Extra. Kick-off at 8 o'clock.
Great. Sheila, thank you very much indeed. Now, many music fans will be looking forward to seeing AC/DC in concert at Murrayfield tomorrow night, but perhaps none more so than Wilma Mackenzie. The 87-year-old from Pennycook suffered a stroke earlier this year, but the thought of rocking out to one of her favourite bands has helped her on the road to recovery. Richard Forbes has her story.
Rock music is Wilma Mackenzie's cup of tea.
Hello.
When she heard her favourite band was coming to Edinburgh, she decided it was a gig she couldn't miss.
The tickets for AC/DC were going on sale at 10 o'clock that morning, so I phoned my son and said, "I'll treat you if you'll take me."
But days after they'd bought the tickets, Wilma suffered a stroke.
Fortunately, my daughter was round to see us, and she said, "Mum's twisting face." So she phoned the surgery, take her straight to the hospital.
Once she was discharged from hospital, Wilma began the long road to recovery. That meant making sure she was fit enough to walk from the car park to her seat at Murrayfield Stadium. It's been a tough road, but she never considered giving away that ticket.
No way. I said, they're taking me whether they have to carry me. I am going.
And surely you'll be singing along. Could you give us a line or two?
Rock and roll ain't noise pollution. That'll be it. I'm doing. That's my favourite.
This time tomorrow she'll be on her way to the gig and she's already picked her outfit. Richard Forbes, reporting Scotland.
Well, time now for a look at the weather with Christopher. Listen, Wilma's having a great night. Either way, how is the weather going to be in Edinburgh tomorrow night?
Dry. That is the theme of this week, and it's the theme for the next few days as well. Perhaps not quite as much sunshine as we saw today, though. Let's take a look at what's coming up. Thanks very much indeed, Laura. Good evening to you. We've had some decent spells of sunshine across many parts of the country today. but some stubborn areas of cloud as well. This is the satellite image from earlier, and you can see where the cloud lingered across parts of southern Scotland towards the far north and northeast, but elsewhere, pretty blue skies. But under the cloud, it was overcast, and actually the cloud is set to increase overnight tonight. But once again, it's dry, perhaps 1 or 2 showers across the Northern Isles, and with the thickest cloud, the odd spot of drizzle, but really we're just sort of picking at hairs here. Temperatures around 7 to 10 Celsius in towns and cities, in the countryside colder. To tomorrow, and it's a bit of a north-south split, at least across the mainland. So through the central lowlands and the south, the cloud will linger through the day. Further north, brightening up with some decent spells of sunshine. Temperatures by mid-afternoon, similar to what we saw today, mid to high teens. Again, with the thickest cloud, the odd spot of drizzle, but many areas north of the Central Belt, fine. A little bit cooler around northern coast and the Northern Isles. Not much in the way of breeze at all, it has to be said. And then to tomorrow evening and tomorrow night, it's dry with clear skies and therefore cooler than this coming night. So these are the temperatures overnight tomorrow night. You can see there in Aberdeen down to around 6 degrees. So in the countryside, it will be colder than that. That takes us to the end of the week on Friday. And once again, we have high pressure overhead, keeping things dry and settled. There will be some large areas of cloud around at times, admittedly. Temperatures fairly steadfast around about the mid, maybe high teens, the odd spot reaching 20, always cooler around the coast. High pressure with us through the weekend too. So again, a lot of usable weather, dry, some sunny spells. By Sunday, though, the wind's now coming in from the south, of temperatures climbing. And next week, for the last week of August, we've got the remnants of ex-hurricane Erin. That could come our way, but at the moment, hopefully, it's going to the south. That's the forecast for now.
Yes, that's will it away. Thank you very much, Christopher. Now, tonight's main news again. Scottish Labour MSP Colin Smith has been arrested and charged over possession of indecent images of children. He was arrested at a property in Dumfries earlier this month. He's been suspended by his party. Inflation has hit an 18-month high compared to 5 years ago when the cost of living crisis began. Prices have risen by almost 25%. And the number of whales and dolphins stranding here has more than tripled over the past 30 years. Researchers say the exact cause is difficult to pinpoint, but agree human activities are likely to be having an impact. And we'll be here with your late news at around 10:30 tonight. Until then, from everyone on the team, enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye-bye.